October, everyone. That is, if I didn't take forever to make this video.
October is all about spooks and horror. So what better than to talk about the one game that blindsided everyone back in 2017, Doki Doki Literature Club. Now if you don't know what this game is, then you may think I'm just joking. But that's simply not the case. This game came out years ago, and as a matter of fact, just celebrated their 8th year anniversary in September. So what better way to celebrate this game than by diving back into it after all these years, to really figure out what made it so special. Now, I'm not really going to do a play-by-play on the events of the game. I'm going to assume you have a basic level of knowledge on the game. But if you don't, I'll try to make it clear enough for you guys. Goes without saying, but spoilers for the entire game. So what is Doki Doki? Well, it's presented as a typical visual novel, where you as a protag join a literature club thanks to your childhood friend Sayori. In this club, you meet 3 other girls. There's Natsuki, who acts like a yandere type character. Yuri is more quiet and reserved, but passionate about the things she likes. Monika, the club president, and just overall the voice of reason in most cases. And of course, our childhood friend, Sayori, who's always upbeat and positive. Now, as you spend more time in the literature club, you begin to learn more about each girl. You can also get closer to them by writing poems that pertain to one of them, which is all pretty standard stuff for a visual dating sim, or so I've been told. That being said, what's so great about this first act is this game takes its sweet time luring you into a false insecurity. There is never a point where you may think something awful may happen. It plays it really straight for a while. Gives you ample time to learn about each of these girls' personalities and interests. Yuri likes to read, especially darker topics. Natsuki likes to bake and read manga. Sayori, while kinda an airhead, means well and wants the best for everyone. And Monika likes piano. You go through multiple days of just regular meetings in the club, having one-on-one time with whatever girl you're most interested with. You feel like a real progression in the story. It doesn't feel like a cheap afterthought. Really, the only time there's little inklings of something darker is in the poems themselves. You do get to read each girl's poems, and there is a lot to read into with these poems, which we will get into later in the video. Rather, I'd like to talk about one girl in particular, who in a way begins a shift in this game, and that's Sayori. As I mentioned, throughout the day Sayori is very bubbly and upbeat. She comes off as kind of a klutz, but means well. Even when other club members fight, she manages to help you defuse and help them reconcile. One of the first things we learn about her is that she tends to sleep in, even on school days, and also that the player apparently has to help her clean her room often. Despite this, she's always there for people, and overall she's a good person. On day 4, we see Sayori sitting alone at her desk, almost daydreaming, seemingly out of it. But asks what's wrong, but don't really get anywhere. Again, when you talk to her during poem exchange, there's clearly something wrong, but she avoids talking about it and heads home early. It isn't until Sunday that we really learn what's wrong. You see, the club made plans to work together for the upcoming sports festival. You had to choose between Yuri or Natsuki to help him. However, on the day of, you decide to visit Sayori first to find out what's wrong. And you do find her. In her bedroom as always. After a talk, Sayori comes clean about the truth. She's depressed. And she's been dealing with it for a long time. Recontextualizing everything that we know about Sayori. Her untidiness, her struggling to get out of bed, and even her poems. After leaving and having a one-on-one with Yuri or Natsuki, you talk to Sayori outside again. This is where she confesses to you, and this is where you make a choice. You can date her, in which she'll give you a sad smile and a hug, or you can keep her as a friend, which, through a painful scream and pitiful smile and tears, she will understand and leave before you can console her. No matter your choice, the MC will assure her this is what is best for her. By this point, the festival has arrived. You've made your choices. You've pursued one of the girls, Yuri, Sayori, or Natsuki. You're excited to see where this leads. When you get to the club, it's just Monika there. She's surprised you didn't come with Sayori, jokingly saying you left her hanging. You do feel bad, especially when you remember how tough it is for her to wake up, and the real reason behind it. Your nerves begin to rise, and they get worse when you read her poem.
Get out of my head before I do what I know is best for you. Get out of my head before I listen to everything she said to me. Get out of my head before I show you how much I love you. Get out of my head before I finish writing this poem.
But a poem is never actually finished, it just stops moving.
Your stomach sinks. You head back to get Sayori, knocking on her door, but no answer. You enter her place, something you've done many times before, and reach her room to wake her up. You gently open the door. It's no understatement how shocking and effective this single picture is. It affected millions back then, and whether or not you went in blind or knew something scary was coming, this frame of Sayori cements this game in people's mind. The way it looks like it's swaying gently back and forth. Her faded expression, even her hair looks drained of color. The blood on her fingers implying she struggled in here. Your character breaks down, not understanding why this happened, saying that he made the wrong choice during her confession. But the truth is, there was no right option. Many times in these games, when characters are dealing with something, it always seems like protagonists can just fix it with one decision, but that's not how it always is. And in the end, you can never fix this. Never. And that's the game. Yep. Thanks for playing. Really well crafted. I really don't blame you for ending the game right here. I mean, how could you top that? Well, it's not that simple. Let's dive into Act 2. Upon loading into the game again, you're greeted by... Once at school, Monika confronts you and invites you to her club, where she introduces you to the other two members, Yuri and Natsuki, and this is where your journey begins at the literature club. Okay, I can't overstate how ominous it all feels. One of the main characters died, but they didn't just die, they got erased. It feels like you're in a time loop, but worse. This second act is all about messing with you. Things subtly change at times. Dialogue changes, the game glitches and the visuals mess up all the time. We see text in different fonts. And events that occurred in the first act play out differently here. Sometimes the change can be as subtle as a picture in the back of the room. Other times it's right in your face. Every change done to the game puts you on edge. It makes you start to question if anything even has changed yet. It messes with your memory. It even makes you look at dialogue that's reused from the first playthrough differently. It's all wonderfully creepy. And really, we only have one person to thank for this. Monika. You know, Monika. The president of the literature club? Don't tell me you forgot about Monika. In any case, there is much more to Monika than you may have initially thought. As Act 2 proceeds, it's made more and more clear that she has something to do with this. And it's not like it was out of nowhere. Her poems lead into this as well. Hers are definitely the most interesting after really reading into them. Her first poem, Hole in the Wall. In this poem, speaking about her peering through a hole, curious as where it leads. However, she comes to the quick realization that the hole does not lead to the inside of some place, but rather outside. With he, as she puts it, staring back at her. With what we know about Monika, it's clear that she's talking about the player. This is her becoming aware of the player and the fact that she's in a game, which is a pretty scary realization for her. Her second poem plays more into this fear of being a character, aptly titled, Save Me. And the poem talks about flashing colors and loud noises, seemingly a chaotic mess of info and visuals that fill her mind. And at the bottom, it says one word, load me. Although in the second run it is different. Delete her. The poem itself is again about her processing all the info being a character, such as coding and maybe her even being a drawing. She is losing it, and at this point wants nothing more to be given the attention she wants from you. And really, when you boil it down, that's what the second act, and even the ending of the first one, is about. It's Monika. It's Monika trying to get your attention, to be the girl you choose, even though she can't be by the rules of the game. I've made comments about it here and there, but Monika is never a choice in the game. You can't pick her to help for the festival, you can't choose any words that pertain to her for the poems. Hell, you don't even get a one-on-one scene with her. And that's because she's just meant to be the helper, the guide character, the tutorial, who is meant to assist you with getting the other girls. Whenever you talk to her, especially during poem exchange, she only ever really gives you advice on how to appeal to the girls. It's rare she ever talks about her. I think this being a character role in a game drove her mad and made her make desperate choices, with the biggest being she changed the behavior of the other girls, most obvious being Sayori. Now, it's made very clear that Sayori was always depressed before Monika did anything. It's just that Monika made that part of her personality heightened to the point that she did what she did, which kinda retextualizes the last poem we read from Sayori. We can assume the "get out of my head" was potentially her noticing these changes in her own behavior. Maybe she even knew who was doing this to her. And it's also implied in a secret poem that the changes Monika made to Sayori was breaking the game. The fact that her own death made it easy to fix the game is tragic, and really shows that Monika doesn't have as much power as we were led to believe, or that she even knows how the game works. Throughout the second act, the game seemingly goes against her at times, or breaks whenever she makes a bigger change. This is shown by some scenes with Yuri and Natsuki, but also encounters with Monika herself. She tries to show you a poem that causes the game to blue screen, and my favorite example of her not having control is when she tries to talk to you after the club ends. She tries to make a case on why she's the only real person here, but the game begins to fade and eventually cuts her off to start the poem minigame. I always wondered why this happened, at least, you know, in canon or whatever. Here's what I think happened. We know from the dialogue with Yuri that we were supposed to leave the club with Yuri, but Monika's interference changed that. So what I think happened is the game's timing was going off with a convo we were supposed to have with Yuri on the way home. Clearly it was much shorter than what Monika had to say, so the game began to fade once the scene intended to play ended. I don't know, does that even make sense? So then, what is Monika trying to do? What's her plan? Well, it's simple. She's trying to force herself to be an option in the game. Like I said, she wasn't an option ever. So in her mind, she had to force the game to make her one. And that's why she got rid of Sayori. For one, she was the closest by default to the player, which made it hard for her to get close. On top of that, it opened a slot for her to jam herself right in. It's also why she talks down on the other two way more in Act 2. She wants you all to herself, and she will do anything she needs to get that. With Act 2, that mainly involves making the other two girls as undesirable as possible, mainly through Yuri. Much like how she intensified Sayori's depression, she did the same with Yuri's tendencies, namely her obsessive ones. First, it wasn't too bad. There were little cracks of her acting different. The first time it being obvious, in my opinion, is your reading time with her. Her reaction to being compared to the character in the book is pretty different. She jokes a bit in the first act about it, but in the second, she becomes more defensive and worried about what the MC meant by that. These tendencies only get worse and worse as the days progress. Her affection for you becomes much more obvious and much more obsessive, no matter if you write poems for her or not. She's constantly going on, not just about books, but the player. It gets to the point that she doesn't want anyone to talk to you. Hell, even Monika gets pushed aside at times due to Yuri. Her poems will take a nosedive in quality. What was once a pristine, handwritten poems are nothing more but endless words of nothing. All of this is just simply part of Monika's plan. On some eyes and shit. But the thing is, just like Sayori, there's a breaking point, and we do reach that point with Yuri on one of the last days. Yuri's obsession with you has gotten really bad. Her poems are borderline illegible, and also stained, gross. She's forced everyone out of the club just to have a one-on-one with you. Through her rambling, she admits many things I can't really repeat. And all of this leads to her confessing to you. And then just like with Sayori, your choice really doesn't matter. Because after a very normal laugh, Yuri does. Poor Yuri. You know, one source I've been using for this video has been these live streams the creator of the game has been doing, Dan Salvato, where he plays the game and gives some insight on some things in the game. If you're interested, I recommend checking it out. Bringing it up because one of his interpretations of the scene I find really interesting.
From that, another way that I like to think about it is Yuri's last-ditch effort to stop herself from doing something horrible. It's gotten so hopeless that it's the only way that she can stop herself. That's another way that I like to think about it.
She knew somewhere in her mind that she could have potentially hurt the MC if things went on, which is why she did what she did. And if you do manage to get the deja vu scene of her Yuri does talk about how she's aware how obsessive and kinda intense she can be, and how it's been an issue all her life. Not only this, but she is somewhat aware of what Monika is doing, or at least this club, to her. She can tell that this isn't her, but someone else meddling with her. In a way, as Act 2 goes on, it seems like every girl kinda becomes more and more aware of things. I mean, how Natsuki, who, albeit I haven't talked much about in Act 2, is very much aware of the weird things going on, especially when it comes to Yuri. One of her poems she gives you isn't a poem at all. Rather, it's asking for help, hoping you can help Yuri. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because it's just Monika. Just Monika. Just Monika. At this point in the game, it's broken beyond repair. At this point, we're stuck watching Yuri's body slowly deteriorate over the weekend. The same weekend where we could have just hung out with Yuri making little things for the festival. Once the weekend ends, Natsuki enters. Appalled by what she sees, she leaves throwing up, and Monika comes to apologize, realizing just how bad things truly got. And after deleting both girls, we shift into Act 3. At this point, it's just you and Monika. No one to interrupt, no quirky side characters to take you away from her. Hell, it doesn't even seem like time is moving no more. Monika just talks to you, pretty much endlessly. Like, there is so much dialogue here that even I haven't seen it all. It's really up to you how long you want to stay and talk to her. When you load into the game, she will be there, just waiting to talk some more. Some points of interest in this convo is Monika pretty much confirming what we already knew about her. That she became aware of being in a game, and how she wanted to break out, but also wanted you to herself. How she changed everyone's personalities to make them less desirable. Honestly, one of the more disturbing dialogue she has is where she talks about Sayori's hanging, and how she struggled and fought in the end, which is why her hands were bloody. So yeah, just really awesome stuff. But, since we're here, I think it's time to talk about the poems of the other girls. I'm not going to talk about all of them, just mainly the ones that interest me. I want to begin with Natsuki, mainly because hers do seem the most childish and simple. But that being said, her second one is kind of interesting. Amy likes spiders. Just like her first poem, it's very literal, just talking about a girl named Amy liking spiders and how everyone seems fine with it and continues to be her friend. However, the poem goes on to say how much they hate them for this interest, no matter how small of an interest it is, nor how little it affects others. And it becomes very apparent it's Natsuki projecting how she believes everyone treats her about her interest, namely her enjoyment of manga. Throughout the first act, whenever it's brought up that she enjoys manga, it's kinda always said in a joking or condescending way. This poem is through the perspective of someone who dislikes Natsuki for this one aspect of her, even though in her eyes she's a decent person, with much more to her than simply enjoying manga. All this really ties into her why she's always on guard, constantly being the annoyed one and short-tempered. She believes she's being outcasted for something she simply likes. Next, let's talk about Yuri. Yuri's poems are kind of what you expect someone who reads and writes a lot to create. She's definitely trying really hard to impress the club for poems, even if she's trying her best not to make it obvious. However, there is some insight to her true feelings and character. First, let's talk about her second poem, The Raccoon. It talks about meeting a raccoon on a random night while she was cutting bread. She feeds the raccoon and it seemingly becomes her friend, coming by more often and following her for another slice of bread. It gets to the point that simply raising a knife will get the raccoon excited for what's to follow. It's very clear that this is Yuri speaking about her tendencies to self-harm. The raccoon seems to be a stand-in for her urges to cut. This type how Yuri describes the knife's presence makes it all more obvious that she enjoys this much more than she likes to admit, to the point that simply having a knife can excite her and knowing what she can do with it. If you do interpret it this way, it is a sad way to look at Yuri. We know that Yuri is very to herself most of the time, but is also very passionate about things she likes. We also know that Yuri has a knife collection, which I assume she began to collect when she began to self-harm. These traits of Yuri aren't necessarily a bad thing, nor even her collection of knives, but we do know where this leads. Finally, we have Sayori. Pretty much every one of her poems about her struggles with depression, the most apparent one being her second poem, Bottles. In this poem, Sayori speaks of bottles of happiness, how she finds them in her mind to give to people like her friends. She has to burrow deeper and deeper into her mind to find these bottles, but in the end, they shatter to the ground. and Sayori has to do her best to keep these happy thoughts. It's clear even from this poem that Sayori was depressed. I mean, this poem was before we really learned that she was really even depressed, and even after our conversation with her, you really don't realize how bad it is, or how bad it was going to get. You know something I always wondered? What was beyond the sports festival? I mean, in every loop of the game, we never get past it. If this game proceeded normally, what would have happened? I believe we could have dated one of the girls, of course. And I think that's when we would learn about these traumas naturally, unlike how we do in Act 2. Because I think people forget, these girls all had these problems before Monika did anything. Why would a game add this to their personalities and their backstories, if not to bring it up at some point? So I believe the days past the festival would have been you learning about the traumas and helping them overcome them as you get closer and closer. Just like how many generic dating sim would do it. And you know, I think I would like that right about now. I think our time with Monika is done. It's time to do the one thing we can do. Delete her. The game resets without her. The story begins as it always did. Sayori greeting you as you walk to school. Really the only difference is that you have a club in mind. You don't join the literature club due to Sayori or Monika. No. You join by yourself. And it can be mind-boggling. Does this game really expect me to play through a third playthrough of this? Would that be so bad? Well, good times never last. Due to Monika's absence, Sayori became the president of the club. She gained the conscience that Monika did. After trying to do what Monika did, she gets stopped by Monika herself. For her last strength, she deletes Sayori. But not just Sayori, everything. With one last goodbye to you, and to the club, the game is deleted. And to the song Monika practiced, the credits finally roll. As the credits roll, you can finally let out a sigh of relief. Now there are actually a handful of endings you can get by doing various things, but the two main ones I want to talk about is the one pretty much everyone gets, which is this one, and the true or good ending. In the normal ending, you will deliver a letter by Monika, coming to the realization that the club was never meant to be happy, that letting go is the best option for the sake of everyone. A very fitting and nice close to the game. However, if you go through and do every route with every girl, you get a slightly different ending. Sayori won't go scorched earth, and rather will thank you for spending time with all the girls, stating that it's all she's ever wanted. She even thanks you for playing the game. During the credits, the pictures will also stay, rather than being deleted. And the poem at the end isn't by Monika, but rather the creator himself. To the special player who achieved a special ending, for years, I have been enamored by the ability of visual novels, and games in general, to tell stories in ways not possible using traditional media. Doki Doki Literature Club is my love letter to that. Games are an interactive art. Some let you explore new worlds, some challenge your mind in broad new ways, some make you feel like a hero or a friend, even when life is hard on you. Some games are just plain fun, and that's okay too. Everyone likes different kinds of games. People who enjoy dating sims may have a heightened empathy for fictional characters, or they might be experiencing feelings that life has not been kind enough to offer them. If they are enjoying themselves, then that's all that matters. That goes for shooting games, casual games, sandbox games, anything. Preferences are preferences, and our differences are the reason we have a thriving video game industry. My own favorite games have always been the ones that challenge the status quo. Even if not a masterpiece, any game that attempts something wildly different may earn a special place in my heart. Anything that further pushes the limitless bounds of interactive media. I extend my true gratitude to all those who've taken time to achieve full completion. I hope you enjoyed playing it as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you for being part of my literature club. Love, Dan Sawada. I know we jumped around, and if this was your first exposure to the game, I highly recommend playing it. I am not doing this game any justice in how compelling it is. Dan Salvato sought out to make a game that challenged the way we look at visual novels. Whether he succeeded or not is up to you. In this day and age, it's easy to consider his game overrated. Hell, I'm sure if this game came out today, it'd be filled with that SpongeBob roller coaster gif. But I still think it's a great game, and the impact it left on the horror community was massive. Anytime a game with a character becoming sentient occurred, you would see comparisons to this game. So many people made their own visual novels akin to Doki Doki. Really, it created a shift from more jumpscare horror to psychological. I'm not saying the game created that type of horror, or popularized it. However, it probably was a lot of people's first exposure to this kind of horror. I just think it's neat. It's as simple as that. Like Dan said, everyone has preferences. He made a game he wanted to make. If you like it or not, that's up to you. I know this video is kind of dark. To be honest, I try to make it as light as possible, but it's kind of hard, given the topics. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. October is a fun month, so I hope this added to your spooks. Yeah, this video did not come out in October. Things kind of got delayed a little bit. I really intended for this video to come out in October, but things kind of just didn't really end up the way I wanted to. But I really wanted to get the video out anyways, so hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully my next video doesn't come out too much later. But yeah, have a good rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you next time.